Our next keynote speaker is Ognjen Milicevic, ML Tech lead at H-Tech Group, bioinformatics scientist at GeniUs, genomics, teaching assistant at School of Medicine, University of Belgrade. Ognjen, the stage is yours once again today.
Good. There's it. So as part of my commitment to honoring the time, I will try to measure myself and pace myself. If I go overboard, I apologize in advance. Thank you for this. I know that I'm usually expected from the organizers to talk about genomics, and I would be more than welcome to do that. But this year, it's the year of LLMs, of ChatGPT, and it kind of seemed like old-timey science to talk about that. So I kind of dived into the unknown, and I cannot talk about a lot of hands-on stuff, although I did take part in that. I would like to talk about some implications of what's going on. But let's start with a bit of history. I really think that the medical profession has an issue with AI, even though it kind of has been championing it for quite a while now. My first memory, I said that briefly today in the panel talk. I do remember seeing an ECG printout. That was something like 2006, and there was a teaching assistant who asked me, "Do you know what this is?" And the strip back then clearly said, for example, I'm partial block of something, and we tried to read that. She was like, "Don't do that. You're not supposed to look at that." But that machine was probably 15-year-old child by then. So I was wondering, why not? This is a well-established technology, right? Can we do that? This is an example of everything you can get. This is probably a bit too extreme for this relatively normal ECG, but you do see there are some blocks, deviations, ST abnormalities. It's a lot of stuff. Probably you wouldn't get this diagnosis. So this is still not kind of a solved problem. This very ugly picture is actually an angry photo of a real friend of mine who was trying to explain to me how my AI is not working. I'm not sure why it's mine, but for them, I'm the face of that. In my profession, for my friends, she was talking about this is Holter monitoring. If you know what it is, you know, you get that, you wear it for 24 hours. It's a huge printout, or now it's digital, and it doesn't make sense to look at that. Also, it's not very expensive, so it's not, you would say it's not really, it doesn't pay off to have somebody advanced look at that. You do have a computer. It actually kind of gives you the candidates. It's supposed to be sensitive, gives you all the potentially problematic stuff, and then you decide if it's good or not. So these examples, she's really angry about, because you can see above here, for example, from a whole day, you have something like 90 candidates, so it's not a huge deal to look at. And then you can see here that for example, it sometimes identifies some relatively normal stuff, and then some clearly abnormal stuff is missed right just next to it, which means that like if this is okay, you were lucky, you saw them in this kind of a screen, but what happens if there is stuff like that all around? What's been going on there? You can theorize, but this is private practice. This is a relatively modern device. This is not something that should be happening. She is correct. This probably isn't the state of the art, but in reality it is. We feel like we can do better, but we're not doing better. This is the state of medicine in reality is, from my experience, scores and risks. So scores, you cannot find a good definition of scores online, and I was really interested. But scores in general, they're supposed to be approximate in a way, to capture some either advanced concepts or at least assign some sort of like simpler value. It's easy to work with. There are lots of scores like that. There are models for type 2 diabetes. When you do prenatal testing, you can get some scores, then you get the risks from them. They don't really mean something. We had a friend in Seven Bridges, he works with them. He did prenatal testing twice. And he got, on their first, he got something like 3% risk of some abnormalities, which was okay. And then on the second one, he got 5 point something. And the gynecologist said, I'm worried because it's growing. and it was the last one. It's not so, but like if both of them were 5, would it be better than the first one being good? You know, like what does it mean? I mean, you can. It's not. I'm not making fun of the doctor. Like, how do you interpret that? What does that mean actually? Apgar score is when you're born, like 0 to 10, like how healthy you are. That can get awkward because you're supposed to have 10. Like even 9 is like not that good, so it's not a very sensitive score. And stuff like that. And the second thing is from the website of a hospital called Cedar Sinai. I was trying to get somebody else to do this kind of summary for me. And then this is their overview of all the great things in the AI. I cut off like the really old-timey stuff. And then you can see here that like this is like, it's really interspersed with lots of huge time periods. Like starting from 2007, I'm not sure if you can see, but like there's Watson, and a neurologist first time asked Watson, like, what's the diagnosis? And then there are some individual things that I've never heard of, but they are probably important, like FDA approvals of some algorithms and stuff like that. The Google DeepMind, if you've used that, if you use it's used for docking simulation, which used to be better. I mean, genomics really got improved by this, but this is still a number. You always had models for protein folding and things like that. So in a way, this is, if this is everything, I'm kind of disappointed. And probably it should be. And just so you know, for these FDA stuff, it's not really that difficult to get something approved. And you don't need to have awesome performance. In 2003, there was a Human Genome Project for all you bioinformaticians, so it's not all machine learning. This is actually, there isn't much, and it's not all AI. As an argument that the computer doesn't have context, this is something I actually worked on. It was an interesting project. These are 3 examples of something really unusual going on. Do you see a problem here? Does anybody know how to read ECGs? Do you see like the large heartbeat and then a small heartbeat, a bit faster going on here? No? Like these tiny things in between, like the tiny peaks? Does anyone have any idea what's going on with this person? Is it an arrhythmia of something? This is a passing condition and a very lucky one. This is a pregnant woman. And just so you can catch the baby's heart rate near the middle or at the end of the pregnancy. So for example, an AI wouldn't work too well with this, especially if this is large. It can get really large compared to the original mother's one. And as a point, an AI, this is an edge case in a way. This is not very frequent. But those who might need your protection the most, the unusual ones, where you really have to turn on your decision-making, they might be at risk the most, and your AI, your general AI, might be worst equipped to handle that. So this is an example of something where you would say, you wouldn't let an AI handle this. This is contextual information that you simply, at this point, cannot process with an AI. But now it seems like I'm kind of supporting this, that there is no happy marriage between AI and medicine, but it's not actually. For my colleagues, medical colleagues, I'm actually the face of that, and it's simply we're pushing this too far. This is a case study for my company. We had a friend who had COVID, probably, most likely he didn't get tested, but he had a moderate pneumonia and he ended up in a hospital. It wasn't really that bad, it was just for supportive care, that's fine. And he called us, we wanted to know if he was well, and he joined the meeting and said, hey guys, you know what was going on? I actually consulted ChatGPT on the treatment they gave me, and ChatGPT confirmed it. And initially we were all like, that's awesome. And then that kind of confused me because I wasn't sure about the tone. Do you know the story about Abraham and Isaac from the Old Testament? How Abraham was supposed to sacrifice his son to show his devotion. And then God stopped him at the last moment. There is an unusual philosophical view saying that actually it was Abraham testing God to see if it was a righteous God, in a sense that would that God actually stop him from killing an innocent boy? This conundrum is kind of what was going on there. Like, who was testing who in that situation? Were you like happy that ChatGPT is working well? You were like, this is an awesome machine, or were you like, I'm getting good medical care? And I don't think we all know either. We're not sure like what's going on there. It could be some sort of ensemble learning, right? You're confirming that from multiple sources, but it's not. It's some sort of distrust to both machines and humans. And then when it got us thinking, that person is really big in our sales and important, and we started discussing, we want to get ahead, we want to provide solutions for our clients. And immediately, we got 2 tracks. So one of them was our solutions for doctors, empowering doctors, access to medical documentation. You can imagine all of that. Like there are many places where a medical profession can be optimized. And then we had a fully different track of helping, empowering patients with the AI. And when somebody gives you that and tells you that, you're immediately like, this fully makes sense. I mean, those are 2 distinct groups and the solutions would be different. It makes sense. But that also kind of got me thinking, like, what are the solutions, AI-based solutions for patients? And if you think about that, also this is fully in the context of last year of large language models, of ChatGPT. So what could be those solutions for patients? And I realize I'm not sure. It's, when you talk about it, of course, you can provide better understanding. So understanding could be maybe interpreting the reports, explain this to me better what's going on. It could be, we talk about empowerment a lot, I think, because we do feel underpowered in virtually all the systems in the world. And I don't think that's fully unintentional. For example, I had an ethics subject in my second year of medical studies. It was written by our famous psychiatrist. That book became obsolete very quickly, but it was written during the last century. Not that old, not that while ago. And it explicitly said that you should talk in front of the patient professionally with Latin words as much as you can, that your patient shouldn't fully understand you. You should maintain that kind of facade of professionalism, as it was called, which is basically keeping the patient in the dark. And I don't think it was intended to do harm. I don't think it was even vain or something. I think it was considered that the patients trusted the doctor completely if this was the case, and that this kind of control is the ultimate driver of good healthcare. I mean, even back then, we weren't sure that that's the right thing to do, and nobody is really doing that in such a dedicated manner, you know, I think. But it was there. So we, as patients, always feel underpowered. We want more knowledge, more insight. We want to take control of our own disease. Availability of healthcare is certainly something like, if you don't have enough human resources, let's plug in the AI in some way. And everything a better ingestion, that's clear, but like also the holistic approach. Like, can you talk about stuff with your AI that are not important enough for your classical standard doctor? And that's true. This is kind of why you sometimes turn to alternative medicine professionals. This is also an option. And let me tell you, whenever there was a client during the last 365 days, they always somehow included the holistic approach in their modern solutions. Like a naturopath, if that's how it's pronounced, or an osteopath, but that's like semi-classical. In a way, like it kind of binds naturally with everything that the patient is doing outside the clinic. This kind of idea with the AI helping is not new. I'm not sure if you heard of ELIZA in any sense. It's actually one of the first LLMs developed ever, something in the 1960s maybe, or 50s. It was very primitive. It's nice memory. This is a game from 2019 that's a tribute to that. Very cool. If you're a gamer, you should try it. But the concept is wild. So this is kind of before this whole ChatGPT revolution. And what they were saying is, imagine a world where an AI could do psychotherapy. So the premise is they didn't go deep down into technology that didn't exist back then. But you're not an AI in this game. You're actually a semi-trained but non-medical professional who is actually the face of that AI. The Patient is aware of the fact that the AI is treating him. He actually came to do that, but the premise is that you would enjoy talking to a real person who would have an earpiece, who would be saying the stuff that needs to be said, and an AI aware of all the metrics of your heart rate, of your expressions, of everything measurable, would make a decision for you. Of course, there's a plot. At some point, you want to steer off from your scenario, and then it's a whole conundrum. But this kind of concept is wild. And it also points to something really important, that a patient might always want to look at a human face. But okay, that's just their desire. But like, is this even viable? And why is this made for such an unusual use case, for psychotherapy? I'm not sure if you're aware of this specificity, but this thingy, the DSM 4, 5, all the versions, it's actually the parallel of that ICD, if you heard of it. You know how somebody classifies all the diseases into something? This is a much better, more comprehensive manual for psychiatric illnesses and conditions. And when that was, when the version 5 was going out through all the discussions, it was announced quite painfully that the main thing that was the idea of modern medicine, finding biomarkers of psychiatric diseases, this never happened for us. Still, there isn't a single thing you can measure in somebody's blood, in somebody's biometrics, in anything that's actually a biomarker of a disease. I'm not sure if that's clear. So what does that mean? Of course, your mental illnesses affect your whole well-being and body. So for example, I am part of a study now where you can clearly see that people with depression, they have a similar inflammatory and sugar level profiles as diabetics. Fats in their blood, everything, so their whole metabolism is affected. But in the end, that's not the biomarker of depression. It's just one of the consequences of the whole deterioration. So why am I mentioning that now? Because in a way, for mental illnesses, all the information you need is there. In that heart rate, in that human expression, everything that you're recording and hearing is actually everything that the psychiatrist can rely on. And this problem is kind of enclosed. Also, it's not additionally verifiable. So in a sense, there isn't a problem of sensitivity, specificity, whatever you said as a psychiatrist that happens, it is the diagnosis ultimately. And this is not a problem for general human health, because you have so many biomarkers, so many things, you have to make decisions. You have to sample somebody's blood. You have to do maybe a bone marrow biopsy, which is painful. There are so many actions to take for diagnosis which are not cheap, they're not ethical if you are not sure about it. So even though this example is awesome, and the key might be have a human proxy, I don't think that this is currently solvable in that way. Yeah, just make a medical doctor and assign it to face. Now this is a real case study number 2. It's not a colleague, it's a friend. He called me and said he has a 1-year-old daughter, and they decided to go skiing on a mountain in France, and they were wondering if they can take a child that high. And he asked me, I tried to respond, I was like, I don't know, just to open up with that. And then he said, do you know a good pediatrician? Then I was like, I mean, your child is 1 year old. I mean, hopefully by now you know a good pediatrician, right? And he said, well, yeah, we asked her, but she said yes. I'm like, okay, but she says yes to everything. And and I was really confused. So he wanted another opinion. They did get opinion from an older doctor saying that, like, I don't want to overstep, but at our time you shouldn't change the environment of something like reserved. And then I told him, look, man, like, I know a few pediatricians, but like, I know what each of them would say. Those who are cautious at the start, they would be like, yeah, just don't do that. And those that are, so it's not really a random choice. Like, what do you want to hear? I'll find you that pediatrician. It's not a random choice. And then he was like, yeah, he just explained over and over that he did look into all the like CDC stuff. investigate this kind of stuff, and there's nothing on it. It's generally okay. This is what ChatGPT would say. I cut off the answer. It's very detailed, but it's all like supportive. None of that is actually, don't do that. It's nice to know that. It all makes sense, just so you know, ChatGPT. So the doctor is as good as ChatGPT in this case. And that's fine. So what I was thinking is about this reply. I was thinking now from a more engineering standpoint. This is an example. This is part of the code that's actually officially from Llama 2, but it is part of my work, me prompting and testing it. So what I learned when I was working with it, like in a local model, that there are 3 types of dialogues that you can assign to Llama 2, probably generalizable to all the models. So you can write as user, which you see on the top. So what is the recipe of mayonnaise? And then you will get a response. Then there is a type of message that has the role of an assistant. So can I just ask you, like, how many of you actually understand why would there be a message to an assistant from an assistant? Do you get that? Does somebody understand that? Can I see a hand if you understand that? Are you ignoring me, or is it just one person? No, it's not that difficult. Actually, you might, if you had more time, you could figure out. I also was lazy. I just called a friend and said, what's going on here? The role of assistant is actually setting up the context. You know, when you're continuing the discussion, you tell ChatGPT, you tell actually Llama 2 what they told you previously, so they're continuing in that tone. And which is cool, right? And then the third type is the system message, which actually sets the tone of the response. So how we usually use that, it's usually for fun, and you say like answer in haiku or answer. There is, I think, answer in emojis. I'm not sure if I've shown that. It's there. It's super awesome. But for testing and for more rigorous purposes, this is what you usually assign it. So you tell them this is something that I kept copy pasting all over again because I didn't know what else to do. So don't be racist, sexist, toxic, whatever. So set some uniform, regular tone, which is probably something that ChatGPT does in general when you talk about it. And this is it. And this is the point why this is all failing. So I feel that to that example, that the doctor, I will offer that the opinion that the doctor was actually lacking empathy. When you think about it, it's their pediatrician. They're already trusting their child to him. So, or her, actually. Oh, it's her, I think. Sorry. And they already believe that she is taking good care. So why would this be different in this case? I think that the doctor exhibited zero empathy in the case of this kind of problem. Like, oh, we want to go skiing. Yeah, like, whatever. And she did say, like, what could go wrong? To be fair, I also didn't exhibit much empathy over his problem, so I was just like, what's the problem? I'll find you that guy. And the point is that the empathy does set the tone of your interaction with the doctor, and a problem that's not probably a heart attack, that's not clear-cut. And those problems are much more frequent in the end than those life-threatening conditions, and important for us in our lives. I mean, we could try, I did try to make ChatGPT be more empathic, and then he became really empathic. He also omitted any kind of useful information, but he did support me that well. I'm not sure what would happen if I said this. I actually think that if my response was all this, that my friend would be at least a bit more satisfied. He would probably still want the doctor to say something useful, but this is a very nice response. What I'm trying to say is empathy. ChatGPT has exhibited essentially some sort of empathy. This is something. It's just not the empathy that we need at that point. When you test the model, this is, I stole this from somewhere, so there are many options for testing. You see, you can, in their area, usually we are interested in model accuracy. Whenever we think about medical stuff, we think about accuracy. How accurate can this model be? You think, was he correct? Was he correct about the advice, everything? It's always that, and it's kind of like legacy from older models. You can see that there is some behavior, but it's bias, safety, respect, and consistency. Emotion is kind of not really there. Grammar style, things like that. Performance is not interesting for us right now. So somebody did deal with this. It's not my idea. I found several papers, at least one systematic review that actually has found multiple studies and reviewed them. It's not very useful. They're saying that somebody is concerned about that. There are 5, 6 studies out there. Only one of them has some sort of formalized testing, and it's not easy to come up with. I'm sure that you understand that the problem, it's not computational, it's not easily formalizable, even like roughly. One of those papers has a lovely, at least llama, I think. Whatever it is, it's actually a nice addition to this slide. But there is something called emotion bench, which actually does enable you to, in some way at least, benchmark LLM's empathy ability. So, I mean, this problem is there, but I have no idea how I would actually test that beyond that in a better manner. But maybe the question is wrong, guys. So you all know about the Turing test, and it seems like it's no longer relevant because it's kind of broken, right? So ChatGPT completely obliterated the Turing test. In a sense, it's very difficult to notice its inhumanity. But there is one critique that I particularly like. It's called the seagull test. And of course I will butcher it now because whenever you try to like condense an argument, it ends up being wrong. But they're saying if there is an island full of people who only know seagulls as flying animals, they want to test the concept of flight. What would they say if they saw an airplane? And you have a pebble and stuff like that. So they would probably say that it's not flight because it's not identical to the flight that they are usually observing. And it's an interesting argument, but the point is, in the end, yes, so your test didn't capture the concept of flight properly. But if our test, it might not be capturing the concept of empathy correctly, but in the end, it could be that if we are only comparing this strictly to the human empathy, it could be that this is the emotion that we actually need. So we don't need a conception, we don't need the semblance of something. We need the empathy with the facial expression, with the exact delivery, whatever is going on there on the emotional and cognitive level. This is what we need. We want the seagull in this case. Let's formalize this now, and I will try to offer you a solution. So patients, they do have specific problems, and not all of them are actually lack of healthcare and lack of access to a doctor. So first of all, we are dealing with personalization. You have general protocols, each patient is unique, you know all that. Patients sometimes don't understand, and this is not related to their IQ or something. I'm sure you know people, or maybe you are those people, you go in with the doctor and then you just go out and like, I'm not sure what just happened. I remember none of this. The report is it's just a report, so it cannot re-explain everything to you. I know people who actually always go with someone, like, please be there and remember this, because I'll be euthanized at that point. Now, so compliance is always important, and this kind of compliance is it's actually how patients respond to you. They don't take their medication, they steer away from therapy, they consult somebody else. This kind of compliance, it certainly cannot be easily solved with just a screen. They won't listen to that more than a live person who is actively involved. And then a huge problem with patients is that there is also local, this is kind of long, like social context and administrative stuff. You know, like you can read about therapy for something online, but I don't think that captures your problems here. So your inability to get an appointment in your local tertiary institution, like for example, you need to know, or even in the more developed, like for example in the US, sometimes they code stuff wrong on purpose, so they enable you to get healthcare, to get reimbursed for that. Because some combinations don't work, so some errors are by mistake. You just know the system and you make an error on purpose. All of this, it cannot be done at this level with an AI. So what I would say is we have two dreams here at this point. We can dream of like a patient AI solutions, and you would need a strong AI for you to know like complete emotional, like a simulation of a human being, and that AI would be an optimal doctor. And I feel it would, but this dream, this is according to some 50 years away, according to some hundreds years, according to some philosophically, this can never be attained. But there is a dream of AI solutions for doctors, which are kind of obvious, and they're the dream of empowering our doctors, making them optimal. And I know that the skeptics would say that this is not possible, maybe that those doctors are somehow fallible beyond, like all measure. But in the end, this is a dream for, first of all, for tomorrow. We can verify that and then give up on that if we decide that this is not the road. And then in the end, until that AI comes, we do need this medical system to be better. So what I would say is when we talk about the two solutions, and we somehow always focus on those patient solutions in my environment, I would say to make them as small as possible and focus on these doctor-oriented solutions with those patient solutions in mind, with the ideas how to connect them, and always make them interoperable in every possible way, and how we can make those work. So regulation, privacy, transparency, and always building that trust. So for me, like, kill the patient AI solutions. And thank you.
Thank you, Ognjen, for this very insightful talk.